Thanks for joining us today, everyone. We're so excited to have you all here. And welcome to Master Sessions with Power BX. Just so you know, these sessions are recorded, so there's no need to take any notes. We will have a transcription with everything mentioned today that we'll be sharing after the event. My name is Talia Kemp, and I'm the Director of Client Success at Power BX. Today, I'm joined by Jonathan Bannister, the founder of Make Happy. Jonathan is a business and communication strategist with a passion for helping organizations drive creativity throughout their companies. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hi, thank you for having me. And hopefully sounds all okay. I am in the office. They are doing a play upstairs, so there's actors and musicians crashing around, but hopefully that'll work. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just going to, I always call this how to survive the robots, because I think creativity is the one thing that at the moment we have over the robots and AI. And you know, if we can keep that, that's the one thing that humans have. And I'll talk in the next 15 minutes about why I think this is so important. But it isn't just me. If you actually look at the World Economic Forum, and that's the group that puts on Davos each year, every couple of years they do a global survey of the skills that businesses are looking for. And you only have to look at that to see those are the top 10 skills they say businesses are asking for and will need in 2025. And look at that under the problem solving, this idea of analytical thinking, innovation, complex problem solving. We don't teach anybody complex probleming in our schools. And then we expect them to go out and suddenly be able to solve complex problems. Well, how's that? Critical thinking, analysis, and then this idea of creativity. And the question that I normally would do to you, is I'd ask you for what's your definition of creativity. Ask all of you out there for the definition of creativity, and I think it's worth thinking what it is. And the answers I tend to get is that people tend to think that creativity is a way of thinking, and innovation is about getting to an end result, about creating something new or different than already exists. But here are some other great quotes. I love this one from Stan. Creativity, novelty that's useful. I think isn't that wonderful? And Alex Osborne, one of the founding parents, fathers, mothers of creativity, went on to set up, he was the O in BBDO, the US ad agency, and he talked about the mental capacity to visualize, to foresee, and to generate ideas. They thought differently, didn't they? And you only have to look at them, and and how, now we probably don't look at them as that radical, but when John and Yoko were rocking the world, they were really different to what was going on. And then Sir Ken Robinson, he's a Brit who did a lot in education. He talks about creativity as the process of having original ideas that have value. And isn't that interesting that it's about having value? So what do you need to be creative? What do you need to have innovation? And I would argue it's three key things. It's your attitude and approach. And I'm going to come back to that again and again and again, your attitude. But you also have to have a sense of what your team's attitude is. Because if you don't have a real sense of where your team's going, you won't be able to get that. You won't be able to get that. And then you need a process and process tools. And that, I think, is interesting in terms of creativity, this idea that creativity is not just a random act. You are more creative when you follow a process. And let's just take a step back, and this photo. And this is really where a lot of the original thinking happened. You have to imagine, take yourself back, 1944, one of the biggest bombing raids over Nazi Germany. And planes left from all over the UK, from something like 60 different airfields that day. And they were flying off, and they were flying across the channel, and outside you had the Spitfires and the Hurricanes were giving them cover, but they could only give them cover till they reached probably Holland. And over the channel, the gunners would test their guns. The aimer was, the navigator was plotting a route. And that day, that raid to Essen was over a railhead north of Berlin, a hugely important railhead north of Berlin, where some mosquitoes, and they were known as the Pathfinders. The mosquitoes had gone in earlier and had dropped flares over the railhead to guide these people in. But suddenly you're flying this plane, and the captain suddenly finds he's no longer flying the plane as he used to. It should fly. It's just not working. And to cut a long story short, why did some pilots still manage, when their plane no longer was flying, when they had been hit either by a Messerschmitt night fighter, or they'd been hit by flak from below? How were they? What was the process that they went through to solve a problem which started as fuzzy, that allowed them to make their target mission critical target that they made, and they got rid of their payload, and then bring that crew back? And some pilots bailed almost immediately. And there was a lot of research on how the decision-making went on amongst the crews. Why were some crews, as a team, able to bring planes back, which when they landed, people were looking at them going, oh my goodness. And it wasn't on this raid. There's one famous raid where a pilot brought back a plane and he had only one engine going. He had lost 3 engines before he left France, and he had to cross the channel with one plane. So take a step forward, huge amounts of research about the creativity and the thought process of how they did it. And I'm actually going to jump and scribble now on this board, because then an American mathematician came along, and her name was Dr. Ruth Noller. And Ruth Noller, who probably is my superhero, by the way, and she came up with a mathematical formula for creativity. And isn't that rocking, that you can take creativity and make it a mathematical formula? Pen needed. Hope you can all see this. And she said that creativity, C, let's call it C, equals the sum of K times I times E. And what she said is K is your knowledge. How knowledgeable are you? And it's not just sector knowledge. You have to be, if you're going to be really creative, you have to have a breadth of knowledge. And what I always say to people is don't always read the same magazine. Occasionally go to the magazine rack and pick out something you wouldn't read. Don't always go and see exactly the same genre of film or read the same genre of books. If you've never read a sci-fi book, read one. And if it is, read Ian M. Banks's Succession. Blow your mind. And that's all you need to do. That's one will suddenly give you a new take on the world. And then she said I, and I is your imagination. How good are you at divergent thinking? Because you've got to have ideas. If you're faced with a problem, you've got to have knowledge and use your knowledge, and then you've got to have some ideas. And then E is how good are you at convergent thinking, at evaluation? Because there's no point in just having a wall full of Post-it notes and you can't begin to go, actually, that one is better than that one. Or if we take that idea and we mix it with that idea, we merge and we get something better. But she also added, says Jonathan, trying to work out, remember which camera he's looking at. I get so excited talking about creativity. It always goes a bit Pete Tong. And Pete Tong is, I'm now going to, on a quick aside, and Talia later will say, Jonathan, you only had 15 minutes. Pete Tong is Cockney rhyming slang for it's all gone wrong, okay? And you'll have to look up that later. But she said, she added A, small a. And small a is your attitude. And so are you one of those people that sucks the energy out of every meeting? Or are you one of those people that are constantly going, Talia, thank you for that. That's made me think of that. Or Mina, what a great idea, but maybe we could even do this. And another way of looking at it is, are you a yes, but person or a yes and person? And if you've never done that in pairs, fantastic exercise where you get people standing, if you've got in your team, And one person says, I don't know, plan your fall party or a staff party. And the person gives an idea, and the other person receiving the idea initially has to go, yes, but, and try and build on it, and then hands it back. And that person goes, yes, but, yes, but, yes, but, and see what happens to the energy in the room. Boom, it'll crash. Am I back to the right camera? I am. And then you try it with yes, and the energy just goes. I was teaching last week at Trinity College Dublin with a bunch of pharmacy students. And when we did that exercise, the first bit, the noise was a bit there. When I did the second exercise with the yes, and poof, the noise went through the roof. And so there was something in that equation. Yeah, and I've got it here because we can share the deck afterwards. There's something in the equation, isn't there, about how did those crews solve problems? What was it about their creativity? And then, one of the things we talk about is that creative performance is a balance of how you use your knowledge, how you use imagination. And if you do workshops with me and do my training, I spend my whole time saying, okay, team, we're now doing divergent thinking, or okay, team, we're now doing convergent thinking and action. And that's one thing that we've added to that equation since, is you've got to have action. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of notes. And we all have different combinations of that. We have different combinations of how we like to learn. How do we like to gain knowledge? You can probably guess from the way I am, I do it through direct experience. Even though I'm sitting behind a bunch of books, I tend to read the first chapter and the last chapter and then bin the rest, because one, business books have too much in between. But I like to experience it. But other people have a much stronger preference for sort of abstract, detached thinking. They want to sort of read it. And some of you out there will have your energy. It's not a skill, it's your energy. Your energy will go up when you're using your knowledge for evaluating ideas. And some of you, your energy will go up when you're using your knowledge for ideation. And you can probably guess that I'm in the ideation. So I am, if you look at that as a quadrant, I sit in the sort of the top left quadrant. Why is that important? Because that actually all sits around how we like to do things and do we do them well, which is a question I would often ask people. That within an innovation cycle, within creativity, there are certain things at work that all of you would like to do and do well. And there'll also be things where your energy plummets. Yeah. And what do we get is the top corner, which I'm known as a generator. I love ambiguity. I love it when Talia rang me up a couple of months ago and said, Jonathan, we've got this. I'm going to go feed me, give me the facts. By the way, my energy plummeted when I actually sat there and go, okay, I've got 15 minutes, I've got to write this, when I have to optimize, because it's the bottom other corner. Luckily, my business partner, her energy goes through the roof in terms of optimizing. So she's great at saying, no, Jonathan, get it out. Tyler, how am I doing for time? Because I forgot to put my timer on. Good. And then you'll have some people who like sort of seeing the big picture, beginning to generate ideas, other people who put the plans in, and you've got your implementers. And it's important because that's how we problem solve. Yeah. And the cognitive, it's not what we know in terms of our differences in education or gender. It's how we process. And the creative process has 4 stages, surprise, surprise. And the first is you've got to get stuff started. All of you in your jobs will be faced with problems. Yeah. Now, those problems might be an opportunity problem. It isn't always a negative problem. It might be, we've got a real opportunity to launch a new product, or it might be customers just drop their price on that product. Oh goodness, what are we going to do? Then you've got to define what is the actual problem we're working on and how do we put ideas together to solve it. Then we have to turn those into a plan, and then we have to implement. Remember, I was talking about that bombing raid over Essen way back in 1944. And this is where it links back to that, is that some crews were going from finding a problem, my plane is not flying, and they jumped straight to implementation, which is everybody out. Other crews went, what is the problem? What do we know about this problem? And they started to go through, and the top gunner said, Captain, I can see that there's a starboard engine's on, is on fire. And the engineers going, yeah, I can see that I'm losing power. They did a whole lot of gathering ideas. And then they were able to say, our actual problem is we've lost engine number 4. We have a fuel leak out of tank number 6. And then they were able to start to say, what can we do about it? And then the pilot said, well, take us up 10,000 feet. So the oxygen drops and maybe we can put the fire out. The engineer is diverting fuel from that tank and trying to stop the fuel in that engine. The navigator is looking at a route. They're going through all of this and then they implement. And trust me, in most businesses, people do not bother with the ideation and the developing of ideas. They jump from box 1, 2, 4. So what are some tips that you can take into your businesses straight away? And here's one in terms of convergent thinking, is that you need to be deliberate. You need to allow decision making the time and the respect that it needs. You need to check your objectives. What were the objectives you had set? You need to improve ideas. Even when you're coming in, don't just go, that's the idea. Look at strengthening it. Be affirmative. It's so debilitating, isn't it, when you've actually got some interesting ideas. And remember, an idea, when you first birth an idea, it's weak. It's actually like a baby. It can't speak and it needs its mama and it needs nurturing. Be affirmative. Look after that idea and consider novelty. Yeah, it's so easy to just drop back to the same old or an incremental change. And then here are some blocks to creative thinking. And we don't like to judge. We're human beings. So much of our education is about judging. And I'll tell you, sorry, there is a slide that I have missed, which is the rules for divergent thinking, which is to build on other people's ideas and don't censor yourself. How many times have you been in a meeting where maybe somebody afterwards came out and said, I thought we could have done that. And you go, well, why didn't you say so? But you've got to make it safe. Are your meetings safe enough that people are willing to throw out any idea and that it won't be shot down? Yeah. And if you don't make the meeting safe, people won't offer an idea up. Yeah. And one of the things that we always say is, and this is a really difficult concept, if there's only one thing you remember about this little talk, is that you never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, that when you are doing divergent thinking, you do convergent thinking. When you're doing divergent thinking, you never do convergent thinking. You say to your team, you say to your group, let's spend 5 minutes generating some ideas. And the team has to know that in that 5 minutes, anything goes. I was running a workshop the other day and someone said to me, Jonathan. And I said, yes. He said, Jonathan. I said, yes. And he said, Jonathan, I was in a workshop the other day and somebody gave an idea, and let's call the idea bananas. And I said, so just out of interest, what did you do? He said, well, I told him. I said, okay, you told him what? He said, I told him he was wrong. And I said, can we role play that? So I said, you just say bananas again. And this guy went, bananas. And I went, Amir, that is a stupid idea. What have I done to the energy in the room? And even if I hadn't done it as harshly as that, if I'd just gone, Amir, you're wrong. What have I done to the energy in the room? Not just to Amir, but to anybody else that we're talking to. What could I have done? And he said, well, I could have just ignored it. I said, brilliant. How about this? Maybe you could have even said, Jacqueline, thank you for giving me that thought starter. How about apples? You could have even taken the wrong idea and not critiqued it and credited the person with your thought starter and built on it and given them something else, because you're coming to the divergent phase where you'll be able to, much more gently than you do, go, I'm not sure that bananas are right for this project. or are right. And you could have taken it off. And that's something I'd ask you all to try when you go back to your next meeting. Yeah. You say to the team, you need to signpost with creativity. It is so important to signpost where you are. You need to say to the team, this is a divergent thinking phase, or this is a convergent thinking phase. And then you need to teach them these blocks, yeah? Which is, you don't have to be practical. Have some fun. Give me a wild idea, yeah? It doesn't matter if an idea is imperfect. We'll have a stage to improve it. What might it do to any of us to build on that idea? How often do people sit there going, I can't say anything because if I say it, people might laugh at me, or people might think I'm wrong, or people might, you feel foolish. They only feel foolish if you don't have the confidence and your team or your organization has not made it safe for people to express their ideas and their creativity. Yeah, that's too difficult. It might feel, doesn't matter. We can work on that later. Yeah. And actually, here's I just got the order wrong, so sorry about that. But guidelines don't have any logic. Have some fun. In the same way as in this, I could have gone and stuck and gone, Jonathan, your nana. See, I brought banana back into it. You've got your slide in the wrong order, but you just go on. I'm happy with it. I've still got the point across. Have some fun. You want people to have some fun, when they are doing that thinking. Go for quantity. All the research shows that quantity gives you quality. So if us as a group started to come up with ideas for how might we get some of the kids who've missed out on education because of COVID over the last 12 months, yeah, and having to sort of be from home. And I asked each of you for one idea. I'm not sure we would actually come up with anything that was maybe radically different. But if I said to all of you, I need 20 ideas, yeah, on how can we improve the life chances of all those children out there who's missed education, yeah, over the last 12 months or not had the full education, we would have, out of the 40, the 50, the 60 ideas we would have, I think we'd start to get some stuff that was really interesting. Go for quantity. Don't interrupt your thoughts. That you've got a masterclass on that from me. It is just stream your thoughts, and that's where creativity comes. And you've got to go for wild ideas, because trust me, I can take a team who's come up with a wild idea and I can make it a bit safer. The amount of energy it takes to take the most boring and mundane idea and try and make, and by the way, that's not my internet slowing down, and trying to make a boring idea interesting is supremely more energy. Yeah. So, and by the way, sometimes draw, even us, the very act of drawing. I do huge amounts of workshops with Lego. We take Lego, I've got Lego, you can't really see it in this office, but there is about a ton of Lego over there. And we run workshops with Lego, getting people to build their ideas out of Lego. So yesterday, I was up in Birmingham running a workshop with a team. It's a tech company that's grown so fast that at the beginning of lockdown, there were 30 people. I think in the room yesterday were 50. And in actual fact, 10 people hadn't come. They've doubled in size in the last 12 months. Half the people haven't met each other. And rather than just do it with Post-it notes, we built models of what they thought a high-performing team should look like. And visually, we had it there in 3D. Wow. Wow. That was much more exciting. Yeah. And sometimes nick an idea. I could nick an idea off Jazz and just, oh, I like that little bit of the idea you've just thrown at me. And maybe I stick it in with an idea from Cesar. It doesn't matter. That idea, you don't have to take the whole thing. Talia, time?
We should probably move to Q&A soon.
Fine. And then build, constantly build. And then I'll crash through your last couple of things because I've got them here, because it'll be, you can cut it. And then where did all of this go? It goes to things like design thinking. Yeah, and all of this creativity is built on this idea that you do divergent, convergent thinking. This is the Design Council in the UK's approach. Look, divergent, convergent thinking, allowing you to free up. Questions?
Okay, so now we're going to start the Q&A portion. Make sure to have your camera on. Please introduce yourselves and your companies when you ask your question. And go ahead and raise your hand if you have a question.
All stunned silence. Oh my. Jazz.
So I'm Jazz. I am a channel manager here at Envoy, and we're a workplace management software company. And so my question for you, because of everything that's going on, kind of related to creativity, but where do you see the future of workplace collaboration heading as many organizations are moving to a hybrid work environment?
Well, I mean, I think that is a great question, Jazz. And I think we have a lot of the workshops we're running at the moment is around that. And do you know what's really interesting? If you had asked me that question 18 months ago, I'd have gone, it all has to be face-to-face, yeah? My business fell off a cliff last March. I ran workshops face-to-face. With a friend in America, David and I rebuilt it, going, how do we do hybrid? How do we allow people to join and, you know, spend some time at home, give them that same experience? We now really think that we can give people the same experience, if not better at times, working from home with a Miro. We use Miro. I think I don't know how I pronounce it Miro. He always pronounces it something different, but you know, one of those giant whiteboards where we build really interesting landscapes. And so I think that if you have ways of engaging people and making sure that they feel that they can engage when they are not on site as well as on site, I think you get the best of both worlds. I think actually, you know, that when you bring them into the office, there's certain types of workshops you would run, like maybe more problem solving, generating ideas. If I'm doing strategy, do you know, I now prefer to do strategy when people are working from home. So I ran a workshop for a tech company in London and Sydney. So we had to, that was hybrid by definition. But they said, you can come in and work with the London team here because they're in the office. I said, no, can we please have all of that team for this workshop working from home? Because I want everybody to have an equal experience. And they said afterwards, it was the best decision they'd made. So I think I'm excited about it because I think you've got to really think about what you're getting people to do when they're working from home and how you allow them to express their creativity and do their work there. And what do you want them to do when they come back and are sitting together? What are you trying to, how do you build the culture in that way? But this idea that you can't build culture online, I think is rubbish. We're beta testing something called Remotion, which is, it's literally on our screen. So I can see all the people I collaborate with and when they're on there. And I literally go click, and then David in Baltimore. I was chatting to David when Talia came on. He's in Baltimore. And I didn't have to open Zoom. I went bang, bang. We had a chat. He asked me how I was. Bang, done. Have I answered the question or not?
Yes, I love your answer. Thank you.
Do I have any more? Cesar, do you want to hit me with something?
No, Nathan.
No?
No, thank you.
That's okay. I mean, I think the other thing, just going Jazz back to that, I still think we're also learning. I still think that the learning, because I think what we've now also come out of is that slight sort of lockdown mentality where people were really worried about COVID, and they're beginning to navigate this, this sort of dual, this dual world, and they're not necessarily feeling the pressure of having to be safe. They're now going, how do we do it? And I also think, by the way, Jazz, is you've got to give people the kit at home to enjoy. And so I work off a big screen here and an absolutely giant screen here. I have lights there. You saw in the thing, I have 2 cameras. I still can go analog over here if I want. Now, of course, I'm facilitating. I'm not expecting everybody working from home to have a Canon D5 Mark IV camera to film with. But I do question why companies aren't really make sure, that their teams, when they're working from home, you're giving them the landscape, and the tech to, to do that. How do you keep in touch with your friends? And I think you look at the innovation, the creativity of companies like Remotion, coming along and going, they've seen a problem and they go, how do we keep culture going?
I'd like to ask you a question, Jonathan.
Go.
So what's one thing that you think we could do starting today to be more creative in our lives?
Don't censor yourself. I think so much of what we do is about, we censor ourselves. We think, oh God, if I offer that, somebody else is going to ridicule it, as I sort of said earlier in that, or they're going to potentially say, no, don't, you can't do that, or it's not like how we do it around here, or, we don't have the money, the budget, And I think if we all, but that, by the way, doesn't mean that you don't censor there's certain things I do want you to censor yourself from, but I think in terms of with creativity, that idea that if you've got a thought starter, offer it, because if it's not about you, it's actually about, just take, you. Now, if I offer you an idea, you now have the ability to take my idea and build on it. So if I've censored myself, I'm actually stopping all of the rest of you on this call from using your creativity to take that thought starter and make something different or better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think it's so different because you think about school and the way we teach, we teach our children that 2 + 2 is 4. It's all about being right or wrong. And, you go through, in your case, high school and then sort of universities, etc. How many colored pencils did you have in your bag, Talia, when you went to school when you were 4?
I'm sure like 20 or so.
And how many have you got on your desk at the moment?
I have no colored pencils on my desk. I do have a couple colored pens.
Okay, but do you see, I know that's in a way a silly analogy, but I think it is, we take the color, we take the color out of our lives in some ways. And I think, I'm interested, and I suppose asking some of the team here, like Jazz, in terms of your business, how are you approaching, and the software that you make, how are you approaching keeping that culture, keeping that creativity going?
Yeah, so we build the software to help companies introduce a hybrid model. So if you're looking to make sure that everyone feels safe by going into the office, we have technology or products that can help you as an employee feel comfortable. So if, for example, if you're wanting to make sure that everyone in the office is getting vaccinated or everyone has a negative test, we have processes and workflows integrated within our products that allow you to make note that you are vaccinated or that you have a negative test, and then send it to HR. So we're not forcing everyone to go back, but if you want to go back, we'll make you feel safe. And if you want to stay at home, Envoy has provided the tools so that you can be successful at home. So for example, I have 2 monitors and my laptop, and I have a stand, I have everything that I need to be successful at home, and you can see my whiteboard. So they are supplying us with what we need to be able to be creative and to kind of collaborate with our colleagues, even if it's in a remote environment.
Lovely. And I think that's, that's key. And I think Talia, as well as you take people, you put them in that situation. I think you give them the opportunity to work from home, but you've got to make sure that people feel safe from home, that if they are sort of connecting with other people, can we actually, can I put forward an idea, and how do you put forward an idea? So one is going back to that, don't censor yourself. And the other one is, which is totally different, and it's why when I was talking about it earlier, I repeated it twice, is that when you do divergent thinking, you don't do convergent thinking. They happen sequentially, but they are separate. And I think if you ask any team, any organization, any individual, and you just give yourself, you go, okay, 5 minutes divergent, now I'll converge. It changes everything. Changes everything.
Well, thank you. I think that's all the time that we have today. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise, Jonathan. If you're watching this on YouTube, we're going to have a transcription and all the information discussed here, as well as a link to register for next month's session in the description box below. And each month we'll be sharing, we'll be joined by industry experts to discuss the future of work. So until we see you again, have a wonderful month. Thank you.